Alright, hey guys, it's me, Ryan Swag here. So for tonight's stream, I'm going to be going over a whole lot of gym defense, and I guess more of like psychological and deterrence factors with gym defense. Yeah, no, the game has definitely changed. We can no longer make level 10 Blissey towers. It's no longer a thing. I don't know, and the quality of Pokemon that you put in the gym, you got that CP decay to deal with. It's like constantly going down. You reasonably can't hold the gym for an extended period of time, and I guess given how the coin payout works, there comes a point where you no longer really want to hold the gym anymore. But for the purpose of maximizing your time in the gym, to get those maximum amount of coins for only taking like one or two gyms, or if you're trying to up your gold badge, significantly more than usual, then these tips will probably help you achieve those goals. Starting out, I'm on Poke Babbler here. Why am I on Poke Babbler? Because I want to talk about the number one, the main psychological deterrence for most players, and the two best gym defenders for the most part in the game. We got Blissey and Snorlax. So going to Poke Babbler's combat rankings here, you can see this is like sort of a generalization of who the best defenders are based on Poke Babbler's standard. So it doesn't have like that human hand influence. It's just the top 32 defenders, and they're simulated against their 15 best counters and their best 5 move sets, and then they run that 300 times. So kind of, it's a process. And then it also rates them for like the amount of time that they're defending, like the wasted time people fight in the gym, and then how much damage they deal. Sometimes goes hand in hand, sometimes there's a little bit of a split, but going with the overall, you get sort of like a complete picture of like the best all-arounder kind of gym defenders are. And this is using level 40 attackers, level 40 defenders, and Dodge Special Pro with realistic dodging and extreme weather to keep it all simple. And what you're going to see throughout all these is it's going to be Blissey, Snorlax, and Chansey in each and every one of these simulations. Every single one for overall is going to include them. If you do power and time, Blissey and Snorlax are always going to be at the top. When you do power, Chansey doesn't do a whole lot of damage, so she kind of gets the boot. But with time, Chansey is definitely there. So these three are overall the best defenders in the game. You can put them in any weather, clear weather, boom, still the top three. Rainy weather, boom, still the top three. And you're seeing like these guys are kind of shuffling a little bit, but these two are staying the same. And yeah, you can do this for every weather, and I'm not going to exhaust you guys with it because those three are always going to be at the top. Blissey and Snorlax, more than Chansey, have a huge psychological deterrence. We call this the Blisslax combo. Casual players want to avoid it. More hardcore players try to avoid it. It's like me, if I'm looking to attack a gym so I can try to get my easy daily coins, and I see that it has like a near full motivation, high CP Blissey and high PC, high CP Snorlax, then I'm avoiding that gym. I don't know about you guys. I mean, some people are like, I like a challenge. If you're playing Pokemon Go like every day, Blissey and Snorlax gets really old, and we're in the potion drought now. The winter has come, and the revive potion drought is here. So Blissey and Snorlax, the reason why they're so threatening is they've got huge base stats to begin with, and they have extremely big HP hit points, and when you're in a gym, it doubles that, so Pokemon with big HP pools typically perform much better on gym defense. Blissey and Snorlax and Chansey kind of exploit that fact a bit. And then on top of that, they're only weak to fighting types. They're normal type Pokemon, so they only have a weakness to the fighting types. And right now, the only really good fighting type is Machamp. Arguably Focus Blast Mewtwo as a pseudo fighting type. But yeah, Machamp pretty frail considering, even in cloudy weather. All it takes is like one or two Dazzling Gleams to not be dodged, and then that one Machamp is out of commission, so that's more potions and more revives you're spending. Snorlax has the body spam, and even Heavy Slam is still pretty annoying to deal with. So these two are definitely kicking some serious butt on gym defense. Those are the ones you want to use. But then we've got the CP Decay Curve. So we got this, a pretty old post 4 months ago from Dr. Thod Pokemon Go. using data from user K556, and then the blue points are using his own data, showing the motivation loss depending on CP curve. Pokemon that are at 2,400 CP or less, they kind of follow this decay curve. They lose less motivation, therefore less CP per hour per minute than Pokemon that are above 2,400 CP. And all Pokemon that are above 2,400 CP have a flat rate of 10% per hour for the motivation loss. So yeah, we've got this curve here showing that. And then a while back, if you're unfamiliar, I put this data in and I kind of tiered out the CP ranges based on motivation lost per hour. And that brought me to this data. Then this led to me tiering this out. So these are the decay rates. And then this is, these colors are then translated to what the CP ranges are. So this is motivation after 4 hours. And yellow represents that it takes 2 hits to KO out of the gym. And then green represents that it takes 3 hits to KO. When I say hits, I mean you have to defeat them 3 times for their motivation to drop to the point where they're kicked out of the gym. So Pokemon that are at the yellow range here, which is 16 to roughly 2100 CP, they're going to be the best after 4 hours. But then if you want to maintain that 3 hit to knock out motivation after 8 hours, then you're going to want to look at Pokemon that are at 1500 CP or below. And then when you got the big boys, you know, maxed out CP Blissey and maxed out CP Snorlax, they're going to hit that 1 hit to KO range. They're going to bottom out on their motivation after 8 hours. And like, yeah, they're super threatening for that initial 4 hours. It's like, oh gosh. But then after that, it's like, man, your CP ain't nothing, and I'm going to slap you, and you're not even going to be in the gym, and it's not even a concern. And if the gym does end up floating for 8 hours, then they're like definitely nothing to worry about. Using these ranges, I made a after 8 hours Gym Defender tier list about 3 months ago, and in that I found that a Chansey with 1500 CP or 1000 CP, that range, ends up outperforming a Blissey that's at that same range. So if you want to optimally use Blissey, you might want to be at a higher range. But going back to this CP decay curve and the tiers here, being maxed out might not be ideal. So it might be best use of a Blissey to try to have it be close to that 2100 range. Going back to this list here from Pokey Babbler, you see that Chansey is always rocking it. It's always in that 3rd slot. Its overall performance is basically always on par with Snorlax. It doesn't touch Blissey though. Blissey's overall score is 186. So both Snorlax and Chansey don't compare to Blissey herself, which is reasonable. But when you consider the motivation decay, Chansey's max CP is only, it says right here, 1469, right? So naturally, Chansey is always going to be in that lower motivation decay rate. It's going to be in that higher tier for long-term gym defense. Even after 24 hours, it's going to take 2 hits to knock Chansey out of the gym. All sorts of things to consider when it comes to defending the gym that are kind of beyond the Pokemon themselves, but the cream of the crop are still the cream of the crop even with these considerations. So that's all great. That's all fine. Then we go another layer deeper in gym defense. You may have noticed that some gyms are tall and some gyms are small. You know, you got the small little pancake gyms and you got the tall, robust gyms with the banners hanging down, stuff like that. So user Eric654256 did an analysis on this, and they found that the gym height changes at about 8,000 total CP. So you want to use like high CP Pokemon to keep it tall, right? So going through this, you want to have the collective amount of CP, all the CPs of all the defenders, adding up to 8,000. That means that you're going to want to maximize the amount of time that each defender stays above 1,333, which is, 8,000 divided by 6. In doing all sorts of math that you guys, people don't want to deal with this math, all right? Found that there was kind of a sweet spot at 1952 CP, where it takes, 5 hours and 20 minutes for the Pokemon to reach the 133, the 1333 CP. But Pokemon that are above, 2,850, are going to be doing it at that amount or even higher, and then he also mentioned that the 3325 plus CP Pokemon are doing at least 6 hours, and fortunately, this beautiful Eric here made a graph for it. Yeah, so this is a nice little curve showing you the max CP of the Pokemon, so the CP of the Pokemon that you put into the gym, and then it goes down and then it goes up. So this is like representing like the CP decay, over time. Since some Pokemon have a higher rate, they're going to reach that 1333 much faster, and that's like what's between the 1952 here and then the 2000 8050, right? So those Pokemon will reach that rate a bit quicker than usual, but then everything after the 1952 is gonna, slum down to, getting to that 1333 much faster. So this is good news for high CP defenders, stuff like that, because before, with the motivation decay consideration there, they weren't doing so hot anymore. You wanted to have the lower CP defenders so you can maintain that 3 hits to knockout rate for the longest amount of time. Now when you consider this, the high CP Pokemon have a bit more value because now that they're keeping the gym taller longer. But the 1950 to 1950, that's such a specific number, represents, kind of a little acme there, and a point where there's kind of like a meeting between the keeping the gym tall strat and the keeping the Pokemon motivated strat. Since 1952, going back to this, is in that yellow range, meaning that for that 4 hours, probably for that 5 hours, that the gym is still remaining tall, it's still going to take 3 hits to knock those Pokemon out. So that's all really cool, but then you kind of have to back it up though, and you realize that our friend Chansey from before, Chansey here, only has 1469 CP. 1469, looking on this graph, she's gonna go down in like about 2.5 hours, and then kind of holds the team back in a way. So with even a maxed out Chansey, you're still gonna have to include like a very high CP Pokemon to kind of keep that up. What I was finding was for most Pokemon, Chansey was holding this strat back and decreasing the amount of time that this was like a viable thing. That is, until you consider slacking. That's slacking here with the stupid crazy high 4,548 CP, which understandably is going to help keep the gyms tall for much longer. I started doing a sheet on it. Slacking, it's going to take a bit over 7 hours here. This is slacking, and this is its time in hours, and its CP, and then the colors correspond to how many hits it takes to knock them out. So yeah, slacking somewhere between 7 and 7.5 hours. Slacking reaches that 1333, which kind of changes the name of the game a little bit. Now Pokemon that were originally hitting that 1333 around like 5.5 hours, well, now you've got this extra CP that slacking's giving them, making it more like, 1,200 something that they're trying to hit. And so then I mix this up with Chansey here, and this is a 1469, so a maxed out perfect IV Chansey, right? So I mix it up with Chansey here, who ends up hitting that rate at about 2.5 hours, and I found that when they're combined, Slacking and Chansey, they get to the 1358 together. They get to like the 1333 together in about 6.5 to 7 hours. So it doesn't really it shaves like a little under an hour off of what Slacking's pulling up on the gym, but overall together, they're still maintaining a rate that's higher than all the other Pokemon that are being used for this strategy. So I thought that was really interesting, how Slacking kind of swoops in and saves Chansey. I think I started in Sheet 2 here. I started talking about other Chanseys, so this is like a 1,250 that I thought was a reasonable cutoff point. And then I used 1,000 Chansey, which was even lower cutoff point. And yeah, the 1,000 Chansey brings it to 6 hours. So the combination of Slacking and a 1000 Chansey brings it to 6 hours. So it's still as good, if not better, than the other Pokemon for the, motivation, the time to get down to 1333. It still stays above that. So combining Slaking with just about any Chansey, as long as the Slaking's got high enough CP itself, I guess, definitely helps out with that. Overall, even if you want to erase Chansey from the whole equation here, Slaking will still have like a huge beneficial effect on the amount of time that you're able to keep the gyms tall. But if you think about it all together, the motivation is still dropping on those gyms. So if people look at it and they see the motivation, it only takes like 2 or less hits to drop the whole gym, then they might, still bring out the daggers and take it down. So I think combining Slaking with Chansey, they kind of cover each other's bases in the regard of both of their independent strategies. Chansey wants to keep the motivation up of itself, so it takes more hits to knock it out of the gym, making it more of a nuisance for people, a source of deterrence. And then Slaking has that faster motivation drop rate, but it makes up for the fact that Chansey will cause the gym to go flat sooner. So they make up for each other. I like the combination there. Now, Slaking as a defender itself, I feel like it's still a pretty dang viable defender. It's controversial, I know. A lot of people are ragging on the Slaking. Previous stream, I talked about how it compares to Vaporeon as a defender. And then I was like saying that it was like, for a Machamp to take down a Slaking versus like a Raikou to take down a Vaporeon, it takes roughly the same amount of time, not including weather bonuses. So you're getting that value from Slaking there, defending the gym. And then if you're using the Play Rough Slaking, the superior Slaking, right? You don't want to use Hyper Beam, you don't want to use Earthquake. Play Rough hits crazy hard. I think there's a video where somebody with like a maxed out Machamp was fighting a very high CP Slaking, and they got hit by a Play Rough, undodged, and it nearly KO'd them. They were like down to like a sliver of their health, and then they beat the Slaking. And like, I think it's kind of odd that people use that as evidence of Slaking being a bad Pokemon, because the Machamp did beat it relatively quickly. But if that Machamp was a lower level, if that Machamp took previous damage from anything, that Play Rough would have KO'd it. And that's just Machamp. That's somebody that can defeat Slaking the quickest, because Slaking's weak to it. When you consider other Pokemon, like Dragonite, Tyranitar, they're going to have like a longer fight with Slaking. Slaking's going to get more Play Roughs off. And I don't know if you guys ever got hit by a Play Rough, but Play Rough is quite hard to dodge. There's no tell that it's going to happen. It just sort of happens, and I don't know, maybe if you got your ultimate instinct on, you can dodge it without even thinking about it. But I'd say the majority of players, the ones that have not awakened their ultimate instinct, can't dodge Play Rough. It's very rare to dodge Play Rough. And then another thing to consider is that since Play Rough has that KO range, that KO threat on it, if you get hit by the Deathloop glitch, it's a bit rarer in gyms, but it still comes up in gyms, even with solo play. If you get hit with the Deathloop glitch, if you dodge the Play Rough, then you get thrown into Deathloop land, which is arguably worse than getting KO'd. So, but yeah, I feel like Slaking is definitely undervalued, underrated. It's really hard to like sell such a unique Pokemon to a majority, because if it's not carrying Play Rough, then it doesn't even get off a charge move for a lot of fights. And the charge moves that it does use are slow as molasses, super easy to dodge. So Play Rough Slaking is where all the money is, right? This guy. And then you got the added benefit of Slaking making gyms much taller. So that basically locks down 4 slots on the gym. You're going to want to have Blissey all the time. You're going to want to have Snorlax all the time. You're going to want to have Chansey all the time. And now you're probably going to want to have Slaking all the time. So who are the other 2 Pokemon? All 4 of these Pokemon are normal types, and so they're all weak to fighting. So the gym now has a collective weakness to fighting type attacks, which is something to be mindful of. Somebody going into a gym, they got their lineup of Machamps ready, they're probably going to lose like 4, I'd imagine 4 of their Machamps will go down, but they'll make it through these 4. So assuming that there's going to be a Machamp squad against them, you're going to want something that resists fighting. Another thing to consider is that the fairy and steel type coverage that these four will likely be using all go resisted by fire types. And fire types are also very potent gym generalists, especially in the sun. So resisting fire type attacks is another thing that you want to consider for like an optimized gym defense. So what resists fighting and resists fire? Well, we got, Dragonite, we got Gyarados, we got Slowbro, we got Slowking. So yeah, these four are very good options for that. If you're not too concerned about fire types, then Gardevoir and Hypno step in as good options since they've got very powerful resistances against fighting type Pokemon. And then if you're not too concerned about Machamps, if you're like, okay, the Machamp squad is not going to survive these four, and you just want to focus on warding off the fire types, then Milotic, Gyarados, Dragonite, the slow dudes again. But I guess you can pull in Milotic and like Vaporeon into that as well. Lapras and Feraligatr, Walrein, and then they're still good. I want to like Steelix for this, but Steelix is weak to fighting and fire. So while Steelix is a great defender in its own right, for when paired with these four, Steelix might want to stay home. And then another Pokemon that doesn't come up on these because its performance is like so poor outside of these specific kind of situations is Azumarill, who is a very good Pokemon for like the after 8 hours type of defense strat. But Azumarill is water and fairy, so it resists fire, it resists fighting, it also resists dragon and dark, so it's all around a very good complement to these four Pokemon, these four normal types here. So that's something to consider when you're consider adding like a complement to kind of flesh out the gym defense. There you have it. Psychological gym defense. You got the gym defense Sunday here. One more thing to consider for the psychological deterrence of gym defense, and that's the top of the gym, the cherry on top of the gym. Using tier 2 or tier 4 raid bosses. They see that raid boss Pokemon, even if it's not a raid boss, and like their brain is like, oh, a raid boss is taking over that gym and I cannot fight it. Our first like impulse is to be like, oh, that's some stupid like Nidoking raid. Like, who wants to fight that gym? And then they don't even consider it as like an option for them to even take as a gym for gym defense. Pick your flavor, whichever one you want to put at the top of the gym. If you want to maximize defense with this, Tentacruel is a good option. It resists fighting and it resists fire. So, and it's John Hankey's like buddy Pokemon. So by putting it on top of the gym, you might get the Blessing of Hankey, which I don't know what that does for people. And if you think about it, you're a thematic person. You're theatrical. If you have Slacking in a gym, the Slowking in a gym, you know what's next. Nidoking. 3 kings. You want to be the king of the gym, you're going to put 3 kings in the gym, man. You want optimized gym defense? Yeah, use the king strat. Nidoking, Slacking, and Slowking, all in the same gym king strat, right? And it is technically optimized gym defense for psychologically deterring people. Now, if you want optimized gym defense for the sake of being just optimized for active gym defense, then yeah, you can clip out Nidoking and put in one of those other, fire and fighting resisting Pokemon. This was a stream recording of my live stream SwagTips. Streams every Thursday at 7 p.m. CT. At the Twitch channel, SwagTips. So come on in. I'm always there to answer questions, always talking about some meta-relevant topic. And for this YouTube channel, like, comment, subscribe, be my friend. Yeah, you can be my friend. SwagTips. Yeah, okay, so Funky Show is a god, alright? And he has awakened his ultimate instinct, so yeah, can't compare the average player to Funky Show, right?